Today, my colleagues Jamie Selby and Lexi Elliott have the opportunity to interview with Wendy Clark today. She's the president of Sparkling Brands as well as strategic marketing here at the Coca-Cola Company. She's truly a woman to watch, and Fortune magazine agrees so, naming her one of 4 women to watch in her field. She's also been recognized for her accomplishments, including the marketing of the 2014 FIFA World Cup. She's also been honored with the Matrix Award by the New York Women in Communications. She is truly a genuine human being and employs the work-life integration model and to balance her home life and her work life. We're so excited to interview with Wendy Clark today, and let's go on with the interview.
We are so excited to be able to interview Wendy Clark today, who is the president of Sparkling and Strategic Marketing here at Coca-Cola Company. We are rising seniors, and this opportunity is so great because she'll be able to give our viewers a very unique take on some of the things that she is responsible here at the Coca-Cola Company.
I'm so excited. I think it's so cool that 2 rising seniors in high school can meet with a leader of a multi-million-dollar company, and we can do it with Taylor Swift and Drake right behind us, and I'm really excited to be here. Hi, so thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to give us some insight on your work and life experiences. Our first question is, do you believe that being a woman has benefited or curtailed your career progress, or has it had any impact at all?
Well, I think it's a great question, and I would say that I hope my gender has had no impact on my career. I'd like to think that I'm a capable person who has good contributions throughout their career. There's no question, though, that I have rallied behind my gender as much as I can to create sort of a wake of goodness that others could potentially, rise up together alongside me. Because, quite frankly, there aren't a lot of women at some of the tables that I sit at still. I would say there are more than there have been. So even in the 20-something number of years I've been working, 24 years, I would say I've seen a distinct difference in 2 decades worth of working, that there are more women in the workplace and there are more women advancing. But I think each of us wants to be at the table or in the role that we're in based on our capabilities and our instincts and our contributions, and not because of our gender. And so I'd like to think about it in that order: capability first, gender second.
A little bit of a follow-up question to that. So would you say creating that wake of goodness involves mentoring at all?
Yeah. So I think mentoring has been a really important thing in my life. People ask me the role that mentors played in my career, and I think interestingly, when you say the word mentor, the names and the faces that run through my mind are people that wouldn't necessarily tell you that they were my mentor. If you ask them and they say, Wendy Clark said you were her mentor, I think they would go, really? Because we've kind of put this label on mentoring now where, well, we have to get together and we should have a Coke and we should discuss and we'll have set times and we'll have a routine. For me, and mentoring was all these incredible people in my path and on my journey who really influenced me and that I took something away from. So I spent a number of years of my career at AT&T, and Ed Whitaker, who was the CEO of AT&T when I was there, was a massive influence on me and my career, but he wouldn't call himself my mentor. I never sat down and had a coaching session with him per se, but I learned incredible amounts simply by observing him, by focusing and seeing what he did, by learning from him, from being in meetings. And so I tend to think about mentoring as sort of this obsessive focus on my part of finding people and role models that I want to be like, and studying them and observing them and sort of acting like a sponge and soaking everything I can up from them. I certainly have had people that I have spent time with and who have coached me specifically, but I think we need to sort of broaden this definition of mentoring into something that is about all types of influence in your journey and in your career. And it may be people that you know personally, and it may be people that you don't, but you can certainly draw lessons from them and learn from them always.
So would you describe some of the situations you're in? Would they draw more attention to your gender in a negative way or in a positive way?
Well, I'm going to steal a quote that I heard from a colleague of mine, Lillian Rodriguez, last week. And she said, so she's a Hispanic woman, and she was on a diversity panel for us. And they were asking her about her diversity and saying, well, you know, has being Hispanic or has being a woman ever held you back? And her answer I thought was beautiful. And she said, the fact that I'm a woman and the fact that I'm a Latina is my special skill. And I just thought that was a marvelous way to think about, it's actually an additive. It's something that you have that potentially someone doesn't have. And I love the way that she thought about that. So, and it would encapsulate how I feel about being female. I tend to think about it as a benefit, as a special skill, something that I can bring and I can lend to what I'm doing. And in the same way, the fact that I'm a mom and that I have children, I can bring that lens. In the same way that I was raised by a single mother, I can bring that lens. I mean, we all have lenses and experiences that allow us to contribute in a certain way, that give us empathy and understanding and unique points of view. And that's why it's so important when we talk about the diversity of our workforce and our workplace, that all of us taken together and all of those experiences and lenses taken together is what makes us successful as a company and as a brand. And we don't want to be homogenous and just think in one way, because that's not what the marketplace looks like.
All right, so Shelley Lazarus, who's a friend of yours, recently described you as being a champion of new ideas. I was wondering if you could tell us about the genesis of some of those ideas, or how you approach your work at the Coca-Cola Company.
Well, I would spend hours talking about Shelley Lazarus, who truly is one of the mentors. So back to the mentoring question, Shelley is someone who has taken time to lend her wisdom and insights to me, and someone that I greatly respect and has an incredible career in advertising. So any words from her I find deeply humbling and complimentary. You know, in terms of new ideas, if you're going to be in marketing, the marketplace, I think could all agree, doesn't stand still. Right? So the marketplace is never the same. New generations are coming in, you know, new products are coming in, you know, the new governments are coming in. I mean, there's a constant shift and change to what the landscape will look like from one day to the next. So if you're in marketing for a particular product or company, by definition, you have to change too. And so marketing can never be static. Marketing by definition has to be dynamic. It has to constantly change and meet and keep up with, and at times lead, the marketplace. And so when we think about championing new ideas, when we think about innovation, it's really critical that our brands don't appear static. And especially for a brand that's 129 years old. So think about Coca-Cola has been around since 1886. It would be very easy for Coca-Cola to be obsolesced, you know, and not contemporary and not considered relevant in the marketplace. And that would be lethal for our brand, right? So we have to be a champion of new ideas and innovative ways of doing things. So we think about innovation as what I would call a transversal. It's a horizontal in our business. So we think about it in terms of the product and different innovations for the product. We think about it in terms of the package. We think about it in terms of equipment. We think about it in terms of marketing, communication, and engagement and platforms and how we do it. We think about it in terms of distribution systems. I mean, innovation has to go across every single thing we do in order for us to stay current and up with the marketplace. So I love the notion of new ideas, because I think it's actually the lifeblood of how our business will continue to grow and prosper.
Do you believe it is possible to strike a balance between time committed to spending time at work and with family, and kind of create a situation where you're succeeding in both areas? And on top of that, are you kind of critical of the fact that a lot of people ask this of women more than they would of men?
Well, no, so I don't like the word balance. I think you've heard me say that before. So to me, the notion of balancing your family life and your professional life is a false goal. I just, you know, especially when you put sleep in there, because sleep doesn't really count as family time. So then, I mean, it's just not a proper ambition or goal. But I do think you can integrate your life, and I do think you can integrate that between business and family time. And I think that they can both be robust and fulfilling, and I think you can be successful at both. It would be not fair of me to say that that's easy, because it's not easy. And it is always about making constant choices and about constantly working on both. So it's not an easy proposition, but you can do it. I think that, you know, thing I get upset about when people say, you know, you read these headlines of why women can't have it all, is because you really actually can't have it all at once. Right? That actually is not possible. So this is about taking a broader view of your life and sort of understanding there are going to be times when you have to lean more into family, and there are going to be times when you need to lean more into your career, and that taken in totality, that can be fully integrated. But you know, when you have a baby, you're going to take a maternity leave, and that should be a really joyous time that you spend completely focused on your baby. Now, whether that's 6 weeks or 12 weeks or 12 months, or that's your decision. But that's going to be a time when you're fully focused on your family and not on your job per se. That doesn't mean that your career or your job's not important. You're going to come back and then you're going to do your work and you're going to double down on your work. And so that's what I mean by sort of taking a broader view and understanding that these things are going to ebb and flow depending on where you are, but taken together, you can fully accomplish an integrated work life experience and journey and existence.
All right, well, going off of family life, I understand you are a mother of 3 kids. Do you believe that, whether consciously or unconsciously, you raise them differently based on their gender?
It's a great question, and I think there's a lot of literature and academia spent on that very question. I would like to think that I don't. I'm sure, you know, all of us have, you know, sort of unconscious bias, but I'd like to think that I raise my children very equitably and equally. You know, one of the things that is important to me is that my son, so I have 2 daughters and a son, that my son has a conscious awareness of what his sister's ambitions would be and what my ambitions are, and that in turn, if he chooses to be with a woman, that he has the type of supportive person to her that allows her to accomplish what she wants to do in his adult life. And so I think it's important that he sees those role models, even though it's not directly about him, that he is an enabler of those with the women in his life, whether those are his family or his partners over time. So I would say my son is actually really quite sensitive. We were watching the Republican debates last night, and so we were watching them, and my son sat next to me, and so I said, you know, one of those people could be your next president. And without hesitation, he said, "Is Hillary Clinton up there?" And I just, and I said, I said, "She's not, because this is Republicans. I try and be I don't want to impart my bias on, you know, I want my children to be able to make their own political decisions too." But in the back of my mind, I was giving myself a high five.
What would true gender equality look like, in your opinion, in the workplace, and then, I mean, if you expand it even broader, in the world?
Well, you know, true gender equality is a place where we began this conversation, where gender doesn't matter, that you're judged on your quality of your work, your capabilities, your contributions, your talents, and that whatever your gender is doesn't factor into that. And that's got to come out in ways around equal pay and fair pay. It's got to come around fair treatment and benefits in the workplace and in the world. It's got to come around. I mean, you do this bias training, and I'm sure you guys have read about this. You have a resume that has a woman's name at the top and a resume that has a man's name at the top, and they have completely the same content on them, and yet the men will get the interview, or they will get the opportunity more than the woman will. I mean, we've got to get rid of that. And the same goes for ethnic names or cultural names. You know, you can do the same thing on resumes, where you can clearly tell it's someone of a particular ethnic or cultural background. We have got to get away from these, and they are unconscious biases. I believe that for the most part, my belief in humanity, that is an unconscious bias increasingly and not a conscious bias, but we still have to work on our unconscious bias. And that's hard, because we can all sit here today and say, I don't have a bias when I look at you and when I look at your resume, but unfortunately deep down inside, they're in there. And that's what we've got to kind of get out of our system and out of our companies and our society in general.
What is your favorite Coca-Cola product?
My favorite Coca-Cola product is the one that I'm drinking. I drink several of these every day, Diet Coke. I have been a Diet Coke drinker since the 80s, so long before I ever worked at the Coca-Cola Company. So this was sort of a unique benefit of employment here, was aiding and abetting my Diet Coke love. And I think anyone, my generation, this tends to be our drink, especially women. So when we were, in our 20s, in the 80s, wanting to start to balance our calorie intake, and probably having grown up with Coca-Cola, but when you have that sort of metabolism slow down in your 20s, you're looking for options, and this was the great option then. Of course, now we have even more low and no calorie beverages, so you've got options like a Coke Zero now and a Coke Life, so we've got an array of options, but this, without question, is my favorite. And typically out of a glass bottle. I grabbed this can this morning, but a Diet Coke out of a glass bottle, like Taylor has there, pretty hard to beat.
And like Taylor, I know I've been watching some Obey Reverse, Obey Your Thirst
Yes, you
spray
like that?
campaigns. Yeah. So what is your favorite Coca-Cola marketing campaign?
Well, that's like asking to pick between children, which I couldn't do. So I speaking of bias, I'm positively biased to all of our work, and I tend to think our team's doing an amazing job. If I had to pick a favorite right now, I actually like a lot of the work we're doing on Diet Coke. So we've got the Share Coke campaign, which of course has been a runaway success for us, and we've got really big plans for that next year, so you're going to see it come back in a really unique and interesting way. But if you're Diet Coke, one of the insights we know about Diet Coke is Diet Coke drinkers actually love their Diet Coke so much they don't want to share it. And so it's sort of an antithetical thought of, so we actually had a lot of fun playing off, it's mine, it's my Diet Coke and I'm not sharing, and we had a whole social campaign going on where people are sort of scratching out the names on it and writing their name on it because it's theirs, and that's sort of fun when you can be that playful with yourself within your own campaign. I think that again, back to the authenticity and the realness and the connection that a Diet Coke drinker feels when they see that, because it's so insightful to them. Most of the work I like all of it, but the deeply insightful work that keys into how people really feel about our products and they see themselves in the work, that's the best work to me.
I'm kind of structuring this question as I ask it, so I hope it makes sense. But how have you seen Coca-Cola change its image? Because I know that over the 129 years, it's kind of had the same kind of underlying principles, values, but as your consumers are changing and as the world in general is becoming different with the rise of the millennials, how has Coca-Cola kind of conformed to that but still kind of maintaining its core values?
Yeah, great question. So Coca-Cola since 1886 has been exactly the same. So I mean, one of the benefits of Coke is that it has been roughly the same formula for all these years. From a positioning perspective, it's uplift, it's refreshment, it's best ice cold at 37 degrees, it's been red and white, and the Spencerian script logo, and then the dynamic ribbon, and all these things have been true of this brand forever, so it's deeply consistent. Back to our original conversation though, if you're that consistent in a changing marketplace, how do you stay relevant? And so what we have to do is pair that deep consistency with a high relevance in the marketplace. So it's where we put Coke and how we activate it that changes. So in today's terms, we're doing everything around social media, around gaming, around mobile. We are looking at consumer-generated content and how we fuel that and get into the game on that. We partner with College Humor as an outlet. All the places that you're spending your time, we are putting the brands, but the brand itself will always be the beacon of optimism in the world. I mean, at its highest order, we want it to be this unabashed symbol of optimism, positivity, and happiness. And it will always stay there, but it's in how and we bring it to life in the places that we put it.
Do you feel like you can address any social issues or current issues using the Coca-Cola marketing campaigns?
Well, we absolutely do that, and it's almost incumbent upon Coca-Cola as a brand to do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, your generation is deeply motivated by that and is very important to you, and so again, back to its relevance, we have to meet you where you are, and that is something that's very important. Millennials tell us again and again how important social causes are, and that brands are making the world better through their very presence in the world. And so we take that very seriously, and that this company is one of the best companies in the world at its sustainability commitments on being water neutral and empowering women, on reducing carbon emissions. And you can click through our sustainability agenda and it is real, it's accountable, and it's measured, and it's pronounced. And so I feel very compelled by that. Our brands, though, can also have a role in that. And so I would point to one of our recent efforts. We partnered with the Ad Council on a campaign called Love Has No Labels, which was about, it was an inclusion campaign, which I love, and that no one should be labeled for how and who they love. And that we partnered along with Procter & Gamble and Unilever and Pepsi. So we had a lot of competitors in there. And actually it was a way that we could say with Pepsi, this is something we agree on. There are a lot of things we don't agree on, but the inclusion and fair treatment and equitable treatment of all people, no matter who they choose to love, is really important for us. And so that was a social cause that was easy for us to get behind and lend our brand to.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us, and thank you so much for answering our questions. They were very, very insightful, and I'm sure that our viewers will learn so much from this. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was nice to see you.
Thanks.
Cheers.